but Commissioner Hampton here has called this public meeting, the community meeting, and I want to introduce her. She represents this district, and whether this case goes forward or not, as y'all may know, right now we have a contract to purchase the Longhorn Ballroom. So tonight, you can throw tomatoes at it. Or you can, okay, we've got a home crowd tonight. All right, I like that. But we do want to leave here because we want the commissioners to know where the community stands on this and ask the tough questions, okay? I'd rather know them now, as before I get totally pregnant, right, so to speak, and see what the concerns are. But if all goes well, we're hopeful that we'll have this wrapped up right after the first of the year, and we'll start in earnest. But I've got a really cool thing. I hope y'all stick around. We're going to take a tour after this. We'll answer questions now. We'll answer questions when we're walking, and we'll answer questions at the end. But let me turn it over to the commissioner, and if y'all give her a nice warm welcome.
Thank you to Edwin and for the team for hosting this meeting tonight. It is a significant building, obviously, in our city with a great history, and so we knew there would be interest in the rezoning request. And so I appreciate you guys opening it up and arranging for the tour and for fielding the questions. I've gotten some preliminary questions from some of the community outreach that I have asked the team to address, primarily what is in the rezoning request. Understanding what the intended use is for this building, the outdoor amphitheater that you're thinking about. I think you've got some really dramatic ideas for the mixed-use building behind us. You're pursuing historic tax credits for the project, how that fits into your component. And then, of course, the question that always comes up is parking and how you're handling that. I think you've got some creative ideas on that. So I am available. I will be a point of contact as this goes through the city process. We have city staff who will also be available. Anyone is welcome to contact me. If you did not get the invitation through me, my email is on the city's website, but it's Hampton, my last name, .cpc@gmail.com. Feel free to forward anything to me either after this meeting, anytime as it occurs to you, or reach out to me while we're here this evening. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Edwin and your team.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. And what I'll just say is this, all of us have different backgrounds. I want to point out two key people here that are part of my staff, and also people that are our hired professionals. Is Bob McFessel in the room here? Hey, everybody knows Bob. Bob is the architect of record on this project, great preservationist, great architect. He's got a clear vision and understands this area of town really well. Bob and I are saddled up. We're getting the old band back together. I told him we did some really cool things in Houston with the Heights Theater. And Bob submitted us. Bob, can you kind of talk a little bit about the project in Houston we did and what kind of...
Well, it was the historic Heights Theater. It was located in the Heights neighborhood, historic neighborhood of Houston. It was an old movie theater that had been burned on the inside. Wasn't much left. The outside was largely intact, though, so we restored the outside. We working with Edwin and his team, built a mezzanine inside, much like the Kessler here, a little bit bigger, if you've been to the Kessler. That is really a fantastic listening room now, much like the Kessler is. We did submit that for a Preservation Texas Award about 3 years ago, and we're fortunate enough to receive it. They thought it was worthy of recognition at the state level. And it is a listed building and with tax credits to make it happen. So it was a great project to work through. Some challenges. Houston's different than Dallas. That's all I'll say about that. But we got there. We got there. It was a great process.
Well, thanks. So as we break up, this is a lot bigger group than expected, so thank y'all for coming out. Also, let me recognize Commissioner Tony Shadid here. He is the chair of the Planning Commission at the City of Dallas. He's been doing a great job for a long time, and there's a lot of things. I'll say this, and I also wanted to introduce a couple of other people that are on our team. Susan Kendron. Susan can wave her hand. Suzanne has been, is kind of a new friend. We've known each other as friends, and I didn't even know what she did professionally. And we're working together. She's helping with our zoning case. And so some of the specific questions I'll do my best, but you're going to find out pretty quick. I'm a promoter. I can sell you beer and put on shows. That's what I do. I'm not a developer, okay? But I think it's going to take a owner-operator to make this thing work, okay? And when y'all hear about the plans as we walk, with Suzanne can help with that. And then I see my friend Keith Manoy. Keith, will you raise your hand? Everybody knows Keith Manoy. He's got a wonderful shop. He and his wife, Denise, down in Bishop Arts, a longtime friend. And I really didn't know what Keith did until I found out Keith is former head of transportation at the city of Dallas, has been retired, and is helping us with some unique challenges this property has as we'll go through. So as it comes up, thank you, Commissioner, for asking. I'm going to summarize this, and if y'all ask questions, that's great, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the history and why it's important. As I started doing research, y'all, just a show of hands, anybody heard of the Kessler Theater in here? Okay, well, great. I mean, about a decade ago, you might not have heard about the Kessler Theater. It had been closed about 35 years, okay? But when we started digging in the history of that, what we found out was it was a unique building, one of the last Art Deco movie theaters built prior to World War II. And then we started digging a little bit further, and you started finding out things like, well, after the war, none other than Gene Autry came home and bought that theater, right? Gene Autry had owned that. And then we found out they had this little thing because they couldn't get really people to come to the movies, so Gene would play there and people would come. That's kind of how they did that. And then full circle, they had this thing that was modeled after the Louisiana Hayride out of Shreveport, and during matinees they would have these artists come and play, and a guy that really was the legend of, one of the legends of the Longhorn Ballroom named Dewey Groom used to play at the Kessler Theater back, this is in like the late 1940s, okay? So we have an affinity for historic buildings. We love preservation. We love the fact that the state now gives us tax credits, okay? That is very, very helpful. There's an old story about Trammell Crow when he was talking about doing preservation work. And he said, what you do is you get your 3 bids and get your 3 best bids from your best contractors, and then you add them all together. And that's what your cost is going to be to redo these buildings, okay? But this building, we did the same thing with Bob's Help down in Houston. It was very challenging. They were doing like a lot of things. Any building that's got a 75-year history to a 100-year history, you've got to do things to kind of just get through where the wrecking ball doesn't come, okay? And so they found themselves doing adult movies in the late 60s. And whether it was the Ku Klux Klan or the First Baptist Church, we're not sure which, but someone firebombed it, and it went out for 30 years, okay? And finally we had these really good people that came in and they put a roof over it and they preserved it. But no one in the Heights, which is the equivalent of our Oak Cliff here in Dallas, no one would let that building fall down. So there's been 7 owners for this property right here. And I'll go through just a brief history, but this is what I'll tell you. 2 of the owners committed suicide. Okay? Yeah, it's laugh it up. You know, they're gone. Okay? 3 of them went bankrupt. Okay?
I'll tell you later.
It's damn dead serious, okay? Because this is my life and this is my wife and this is my family here. At 52 years old, I don't have a chance. I don't need to go bankrupt. Okay? So we're either going to make it together or we're not going to make it. That's the whole point. But what's inspiring about this particular building is the history, and that's what's got me in. I mean, that's what's got my heart right now. It's 1950, okay? A guy that came to Dallas with a 6th grade education selling pencils named O.L. Nelms comes in here, and he's a speculator. He builds just like anybody in Texas, right? You either make it in real estate or you make it in the energy business, right? Mr. Nelms became one of the biggest property owners in Dallas, and he built a lot of crazy projects like the Yellow Belly drag strip, okay? And right here, for one of his good friends, he built Bob Wills' ranch house. And that's what this place was called in 1950, was Bob Wills' ranch house, okay? The way it worked, and now what we're finding out, because we're doing a ton of research, and I have 3 of my staff here right now. Amy Miller, will you raise your hand?
Right.
All right. Amy, you might not recognize her, but I guarantee you know her voice, 91.7. She's been the program director for KXT for many years, and if you go through drive time Monday through Friday, she's on station 4 hours. She's also the one that did our playlist, which we don't have, but Diana Cox, Director of Operations. She's really the boss, okay? I can stand up here and they make me write the checks, but she's the Director of Operations for Kessler Presents. Jeff Lyles, everybody see Jeff Lyles? Jeff Lyles is a legend, and I don't use that term lightly. Jeff Lyles is a legend in Dallas music history. As a matter of fact, in 1986, when he was just not too far out of high school, he was booking the Longhorn Ballroom and booked the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Motorhead, and among other things. So he's here. His picture's actually on the wall, so that's the bonus question of who is that guy? It's Jeff Lyles. Employee number 1 at Kessler Presents, very first guy I called. He was managing the famed Roxy Theater in Los Angeles, and I lured him back to Dallas, and we together, he and I, started Kessler Presents, the Kessler Theater. That was a decade ago. Back then, Jeff rolled in. He had dreadlocks down to his butt, smelling like weed. Probably, okay? Now it's just down to his shoulders. I was corporate button-up with a tie, and I guarantee you we both looked at each other and said, there is no way in hell this is going to work. And within probably about 45 minutes, we found a commonality and a love for preservation, a love for music, and it's been a really dynamic partnership ever since. And then holding down the fort back there is Allison Weaver. Allison is our office manager, and she'll give you free cookies before you leave. So, all right. So I've got a couple of renderings. We're going to walk around. I'm going to hit some high points, and I'll stop. I'm from East Texas, so I talk a lot fast. So if I take a breath, that's your cue to jump in with a question, okay? But right now we have this first rendering. This is an ambitious, it's not quite sailboats in the Trinity River, okay? But this is our version. What we would love to do here is we would love this to be a gateway into the Trestle Trail in the parks, okay? As many of you know, the city's put some tremendous infrastructure into the parks. We've got a great bridge that connects us to the other side. It's unutilized. You start off at, probably up the river just a little bit, maybe in the Trinity Groves. You get all the way down here and there's nothing here. You turn around and you go back, okay? That's what we want to do. Unfortunately, it's one of the reasons Keith has been helping. We found out there's a thoroughfare plan that's been in place. We thought it was since 1995, which feels pretty old. Keith has researched it. It goes back to 1965. It's a holdover. And what a thoroughfare plan does, let me just say, if you have never heard of one of those and you're trying to do development, it's a bad thing. You just don't want any part of it, okay? So the thoroughfare plan basically says that the city may one day come in and expand this into 6 lanes wide on both sides and take my historic building, okay? How many preservationists are in the room? All right, thank y'all. We're going to need your help, okay? Right now, we've battled it to a draw. They don't want to take my historic building right now, which is good, And as the commissioner had said, one of the reasons is we were very proactive. We've got a track record. We put both of our properties on the National Register of Historic Places, and right now it's a 3-step process, and we are through step 1 with this. We don't own the building yet. It's as far as we can take it right now. We hope to close on it, but we're pushing forward to get this on the National Register, and that will give us some sort of coverage where the yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yep.
Which one of the roads is part of the thoroughfare plan? Is it Corinth or is it
Industrial.
Riverfront?
It was industrial then, and it turns in to, it's now called Riverfront. And so, just so, anybody in here like parks and trees and all that kind of good stuff? Really, y'all like those? Well, guess what? They're going to plow that road right through the damn middle of the Great Trinity Forest. How about that for you? Right? We're going to let that happen? No. That's what I thought. All right, so, point is these things are put into place. City's got to do their job. Some really, really good people, but at the same time, we're working through those details right now about how it might work. Also, anybody here pay taxes? All right, guess what? You're going to have to pay for that big road if it goes through. But let me just say, this is what we feel like. It's a thorn in our side. We've got to deal with it, and we will deal with it. But until we get the pretty pictures and the bicycle lanes and the trees all along Riverfront going back to the park, not going to happen until we deal with the thoroughfare plan. And right now, we are not going to let that delay us buying this particular property. It just may not look that pretty with the trees for a minute. Okay, but we do have a plan. We've been talking to the right people, and we feel pretty confident that, they haven't done anything in 65 years. We don't think they're going to do anything, and especially now the fact that people understand the value of the Great Trinity Forest and how that would work, and making streets. We've been working with a lot of people. So that's that picture. We're going to keep walking here because I could talk all day.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Yes.
Any questions on this initial start?
Yep.
Is the road is that the extension of Riverfront?
No, that's the baby version right now. That's the way it sits. That's our vision right now, 2 lanes. okay? This thing would go about preservation and how that works, okay? And for everybody here, there's kind of 3 levels of preservation that you can get. You can get it at the federal level, you can get it at the state level, and you can get it at the local level, okay? And we want to pursue all of those. We start at the federal level because we know that we've got to go through about a 40-page report, and we're still digging out all of our history. So right now, the only thing that we've done at this point in time is submitted our Part 1, which is the same plan that we did for the Kessler. It's the same plan we did for the Heights. But let me just say, at the state level, they offer incentives, and also at the local level, they offer incentives. And I promise you this, I'm not too proud to bend over if $1's on the ground to pick it up, okay? Because again, my wife's in here and she's monitoring every word I say, so there we go. So no designation. What was the second question?
The outdoor event music venue.
Yeah.
Could you speak to how that is intended to operate, noise considerations that you have taken?
Yeah, so we're going to go over here. Why don't we do that? Since, okay, that's a big question. So there's 2 questions. So we're going to all walk out here together and I'll show you. All right. You can look at the pretty renderings as you come by. If y'all just kind of semicircle here for a second. I got y'all moving and then it's really great. I'm going to take the commissioner's question, but she had asked a question earlier and I want to hit on, but I'm going to do them in reverse order because it's easier to logistically to move this big crowd. So there's two other, it's really this project kind of 3 phases of what we're trying to do, okay? Phase 1 is to get the Longhorn Ballroom back up and operational, okay? We'll talk about some of the great history here in a moment. The second part is when we go outside, and we'll do that here right after this. There's an old motel building that's across the way. That's part of the property as well. That's 20,000 square feet, okay? The way that they used to do, as y'all know, Bob Wills used to own this, and he was a swing band. The way that those tours worked back then is they would come in and play for 6 weeks at a time. And Bob would head out to go to California or wherever, and he'd play. Then Hank Thompson would come in and he would play. So the reason they built that motel room, our theory is that's where you put up the band, okay? There's an anecdotal funny story that Bob, since this was his place, he also put a stable in the backyard, and he would ride his horse Pumpkin up on the stage. So that was kind of a fun little deal. Going into the history, one of the things, the reason I bring you here, there's always some sort of preservation thing that pops up with every project we do that we didn't know, okay? And we would have never known. By the way, when we talk about noise ordinances, anybody here, does anybody know what that is?
That's a freight train.
There you go, that's a freight train. In a minute, we're going to go out there, we'll listen to freight trains and other things, and we're going to talk about how music blends with freight trains. Johnny Cash sings a song about, hear the train a-coming. Anyway, I won't do that. I see a real professional in the room, Thomas Chorber right there, ladies and gentlemen. One of the next great songwriters, is the next great songwriter in Texas. Maybe we could talk Thomas into singing in a minute. I don't know if he's got a song about trains, but maybe we'll see in a minute. So, that's right. So the reason I bring this up is because, unfortunately, not known to us and probably not known to anybody, even the former owners, is this has a sprinkler system, but nobody knows how to turn off a sprinkler system, okay? Because the vault was buried deep underneath this, and we found this out because it was running. The vault was buried underneath, paved over, and in February, we got a call, and this place was flooded. So when you see all this, if they had to come in immediately, insurance companies didn't want it to mold and all that kind of stuff, and they start having to rip off a lot of this stuff. This has been put back, but you'll notice around the bottoms around here, if you've ever had a flood, and unfortunately we had to go through this with Harvey in Houston, with our other venue down in Houston, that's what they do. They kick it all out. They don't want all the mold and all that kind of stuff. But the one silver lining in all this is when they're pulling all this back, all this, you'll see there's a faux wall right here. They pull this back and they find an original mural from 1950 that goes with the venue. And so that was here. It looks almost like that's before you could. zoom it on the, kind of on the wall and paint. You just did that all freehand. And what we found out is murals went all the way around here. So we've hired one of the best muralists, and he came out, and we knew it was going to be expensive. And he said, that's probably going to cost you about $100, because here's what you do, is you clean that up, and you put plexiglass, and you tell the narrative about that story. Okay, so that's from 1950. I'll ask y'all to step out here. Watch your steps as you come right out here.
Ed, any idea who painted those murals?
No idea right now. I can tell you who painted these, though. So, yeah, y'all come on out here and we'll look.
Edwin, are you expecting to find more murals?
They're there. I just don't know. They're super expensive. That mural right there, quote, makes it $20,000 just for that. Yeah, isn't that crazy? It's too short. All right. I think we've got almost everybody. All right, I see staff rolling in, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the reason I want y'all to look over here, okay, this was the hotel that was built in we got the Sanborn. If you're a preservation, you really know what Sanborn maps are all about. And in 1952, it shows both the ballroom and this motel on this lot, okay? And then all these contiguous lots over here were all part of it as well. Here's the neat part. I see my friend Lester Houston, who's got a history, and I see his friend here who's played on the stage with us here before. But this was not annexed by the city of Dallas till 1953. So there's this weird thing. When you're over the river, you're in Oak Cliff. When you're on this side of the levee, because you're going to see, you had this really unique pocket, okay, that was outside of the city limits, even though you're in the city, okay? And so when you started getting away with some crazy things down here at the Longhorn Ballroom, that's probably why it was, okay? I'm going to leave this reveal to the very end, but I'll just say this. When Mr. Wills had to give the property back in 1952, Mr. Nelms came back in and took it. Anybody know who he hired to run this place at the time? I mean, just super, there you go, Jack Ruby, there you go. Anybody remember Jack Ruby? He became pretty famous in about 63 for doing some other things, okay? As a matter of fact, when you walked in, there's a big black safe on the ground, okay? That is Jack Ruby's safe, and it hasn't been opened. So as a promoter, I'm going to have a Geraldo moment when we get this thing open, and we'll sell tickets and we'll try to pay for our light bill, okay? But what I was told is the way that these guys would tour back in the day is Bob Wills would play here. Anybody know what our great friend Waylon Jennings said about Bob Wills? He wrote a song about it.
The king of
The King of Swing, and his song is Bob Wills is Still the King. So our friend Mick Jagger, does anybody remember him? He was just in town the other day, okay? And he says, I learned this song from my friend Waylon Jennings. And he said, every time I'm in Texas, I play this. And it's Bob Wills is Still the King. So the funny part about Mick Jagger and this is what I'm about to tell you. And a lot of my friends from the African American community know this. And a lot of my really cool friends from the Anglo community know this as well, okay? And I got a picture to prove it, okay? But this was kind of outlaw territory before outlaw was even a word. And with Jack Ruby only managed this thing for 2 years, but he left an indelible kind of mark on this. And it was because Jack saw an opportunity to make money in the Deep South on Sunday and Monday nights. He had African American performers playing on the stage of the Longhorn Ballroom and put on by African American promoters. It was a magical time. This is when you got the Bobby Blue Blands, okay? And I'm going to leave the last one till the very end because y'all want me to prove it, I know, because you're thinking, man, I don't know, this guy will sell me whatever, right? But I get it. I'm a promoter, but I'm gonna leave this. Ray Charles played here in 1959 to an integrated crowd. In 1959, What I Say was just breaking. Ray Charles was playing it with the Raylettes in a 17-piece orchestra, and that ushered in soul music. And that was happening at this every Monday night from about 1952 all the way up to the great Johnny Taylor was playing this place. And you played with Johnny, is that right?
Me?
Yeah, you.
No, I didn't play with John. I played with Blue Pepper Show Band back.
You played with a show band. All right. Great blues player right here and a picker and plays at RL's place all the time, still performing, but he's played the Longhorn Ballroom. So what I was told is this is where the motel was where people would stay, but then my good friend Bobby Patterson, y'all know Bobby, great soul artist. Bobby told me by the time he started playing here in the 60s, they sold those motel rooms out by the hour. So just putting that out there for you, okay? I'll just say this is part of the renovation from 2017. As y'all may know, this place has gone through a lot of iterations. One of the unfortunate is someone came in, but fortunate, unfortunate. Fortunate is this thing was probably going to the wrecking ball and being taken over by a developer. So the people came in and they bought it, and they got it a little of the way, but they couldn't get it all the way done, and it went back into bankruptcy sometimes in 2019, 2020. Of course, the pandemic didn't help that as well. But these murals are replicas, and they're from 2017, and that is Style Reed. And if you go through the stockyards in Fort Worth, you'll see a lot of Style Reed. Let me ask questions about the motel because I'm going to tell you what we plan on doing with it. We're not going to sell it out by the hour, I can promise you that. But I'll tell you that, and then I want to go back in and address the commissioner's question as we go back out into the backyard. Any questions from out here? I know we're kind of, it's not
Are you keeping it as a motel?
No, that's a good question. We just asked if we're keeping it as a motel, okay? Our plans are we're working with Dr. Eric Johnson, who is over economic development in the city, okay? This area right here has been long forgotten, long neglected, okay? That traffic light is from the 1960s. It needs to be replaced. It is just horrible.
That intersection needs to be replaced.
Thank you very much. Hey, listen, you preach it flat around. I'm going to amen you from the choir on that one for sure, because it is. If you'll notice out there, there's no infrastructure, there's no curbs, there's no turn lanes, okay? There's no lights. All the amenities we have over in Kessler Park, and maybe you have in your neighborhood, this is it. Okay, y'all hear that right there? Okay, that is the dart line. In a minute, it's a good precursor because those don't come out all the time. What you're hearing is about 60 dBs. That's important. When you stand right next to that, that thing is over 700 feet away. Okay? There is noise down here. That is what you call directional sound, okay? Or I'm sorry, that is what you call line sound. That is coming off of the dart line. It's elevated. When you're standing right next to it, it is screaming loud in your ear. It's 95 to 100 dBs. That's just what it is. It comes in, it grows across here. But what happens is sound dissipates over time. It gets down to 65 dBs, okay? So what you're hearing is about 65 when at the highest levels, okay? There's also, we're gonna run right back through here and I'm gonna take you out to the backfield. Let y'all warm up for just a second. Sorry, there's another one coming.
You've got a voice.
I got a voice, there we go. Okay, so what we have right now is we've got 20,000 square feet. At the very front of that, you had a historic, you had a restaurant, and you, sorry, 1 second. Okay.
Dark.
Okay, when it comes this way, it's a little louder, as y'all can tell. Okay, a little bit louder, okay? So, anyway, so what you've got here is you've got an old motel building. It has a restaurant on the end. We would love, what I'd love to do is do this and let people live in the shadow here. And what we want to do is, one of the things we've done really well at the Kessler is we were able to, are y'all familiar with what's called co-work spaces?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we want to do that for the creative community. We're taking a model out of Nashville, and what we know is Nashville, everybody thinks is a music town, but now music and video are starting to sync, and so you're starting to see Google and YouTube and a lot of those things. That's the missing link for Dallas right now, in my opinion, is yes, we're going to get Toyota. We're glad to have Toyota, okay? We're glad to have the inland port. There's nothing wrong with that. It's logistics because of where we're located. But we need to be grabbing some of this area that's around these trails, and we need to put quality of life back on the table to attract the millennials, to attract those young professionals. I was just in Austin last Thursday. We have operations in Austin. The price of poker in Austin is at least twice as expensive as it is in Dallas when you move in there. You can move down to San Marcos, where I graduated from, and you'll be okay. But when you've got almost 30 acres right here in the urban core, we think we can be competitive. We just need to bring a little bit. I don't want to say we want to bring Oak Cliff or we want to bring Austin or we want to bring Brooklyn, but we can do that with this facility, 4.5 acres. So we want to create an entrepreneurial hub that attracts creatives. In the past, there's been a record label there. There's been a restaurant there. We want to put co-work there. We want to do a little bit of mixed retail, but essentially we want that to be kind of 9 to 5 operations, and we want this to be 5 to 9 operations, if you or later. That's the way we do it at the Kessler. It's worked great. It's called mixed use, is the term they told me is what it's called, is where you have that. So we would like that. That's kind of phase 2. This is phase 1. This is kind of phase 1.5, and this is phase 2.
So where does the amphitheater come in?
We're going to go right out the door, and I'm going to show you. Yes, sir?
Will the train also come in? You heard about that?
Yeah, the train, I'm not sure exactly. Anybody here from Dart know where the train's going to come? Oh, you're talking about the bullet train. Yeah, the bullet train. Okay, we'll look at that. Let's all go over.
Wow, this is the real
That's
dream right
us,
here.
yeah, I know.
Right there. I actually just rode down here because I rode it the next. Oh, did you gravel bike? Yeah, my gravel. Yeah. I'm just interested
Introduce myself, Michelle.
Yeah, but this will be quick because I know I can. If I'm getting cold as big as I am, I know my wife is going to tell me at the end of the night, you should have been quicker while we were outside. Okay, so can I have you, young man, stand right here and look this way? All right. All right. This is our lead singer. He is standing on our stage. When you walk by, you saw the stage. We're pointed that way. Okay. Let me tell you exactly where we're at. We're right between some scrap yards that have been here 100 years. The Ocon that's right over here, Lewis and I have turned out to be great friends. He loves music. He knows who I am. He's very supportive of this project. He is 4th generation scrapper, 100 years. Those have been scrap yards for 100 years, okay? This project has been here when this was the Trinity River, okay? That's the Trinity River bottom. As you may know, those big things, shadows you see in the corner over there, those are the levees, okay? That is when this used to be Rock Island. There was no way on or no way off, and you can see some renderings from the late 1800s. They thought they were going to bring steamboats up the Trinity, and this was part of the Trinity. That is a concrete batch processing plant, okay? It's very hard for those companies to get zoning anywhere else. I love my neighbors. I really, really do. I say that honestly, okay? And it doesn't matter. I was quoted in D Magazine just recently. Doesn't matter if it's high rises, doesn't matter if it's scrap yards or whatever. We're just going to do what we do. 72 years this place has been doing what it does. But here's the wrinkle, and this is the thing that the commissioner had asked me a minute ago and I wanted to address. One of the things Dallas is losing, and one of the things that the city's Office of Economic Development is really, really excited about, all your major metropolitan areas now have what's called boutique amphitheaters, okay? There's one in Nashville that's really popular, okay? The Moody's, which y'all know Moody Coliseum at SMU, guess what? They're taking their money to Austin. They're putting in a 5,000 cap. It just opened about a month ago, an outdoor amphitheater right in downtown Austin area, okay? I'm not asking for a bunch of money for the city, but I'll be humble. Like I said, I'll bend over and pick up $1 if it's there. I am asking for a little bit of money because this is something we have that is so unique. Melvin Saunders is my acoustician. He goes around the world generally in a reactive mode for people because people don't understand sound when they do this. We understand sound. This is what we do professionally, okay? So here's what happens. We have a stage that is about 4 foot high. The roof line is about another 20 foot up. You have what is called directional arrays. Very scientific. We can push the sound very scientifically where it needs to go right here. It creates a shadow. it's way up and it pushes down, okay? And you can cover this back lot area. Anybody estimate how many people can get in this place right here?
5,000?
You hit it. It's 4,000 to 5,000. That is exactly by design the size that we want, because on those shows now, you can get someone like Leanne Rimes to come and stay for 2 nights and do a 2-night set. And you, as a consumer, you're not watching Leanne up on a video board, you're actually seeing her face. You're close enough to see her. Gary Clark Jr., Leon Bridges, St. Vincent just nominated. These are artists we have great relationships with that will come and do a 1 and 2 night stand. Starter set, Kessler Theater. Graduate from the Kessler, come to the indoor Longhorn Ballroom, and we've got a dozen of them. Maren Morris, okay, among others. They graduate out of the Kessler, they graduate out of the Heights, they graduate out of the 04 Center, and then they come and they play the Longhorn Ballroom. And when they play the Longhorn Ballroom, then they come over here and they play. Anybody know who Black Pumas is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they broke off our, well, they broke because they're Black Pumas and they're great, but they did their record release, and right literally before the pandemic started, they did a 3-night sold out on our stage. And, you know, Adrian Casada, I talked to Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Gonzalez, can you wave your hand? He's back here, there he is right here. Mr. Gonzalez was telling me a great story about he came to the first Freddie Fender show at this ballroom in the 1960s, okay? So a lot of history, but going back to here, so we got the directional arrays, they shoot down, okay? Melvin Saunders, and we've got a report, Commissioner. I know y'all probably, hopefully have seen it, and if not, we'll get it out to you. I'm almost sure you've seen it. But the sound, what happens is you directionally support that sound, okay? It comes out of a speaker for a rock concert at about 150 dBs. By that it hits what's called the front of house, that's about 60 feet away. That's someone twisting the knobs where they're hearing what you're hearing out in the audience. By that point, it gets down to about 95 dBs, okay? By the time it hits our back fence line over there, we're probably at about 70 to 75 dBs. But the way that the angle pushes down, here is the hidden opportunity for me, okay? If you know what you're looking for, there's gold out here. And it's those darn levees. Those darn levees are 38 feet tall, okay? You put up a tree, that's great, it causes shade, but it does not mitigate any sound at all. Those levees do. So there's a shadowing effect. The closest neighbors, okay, are over 3,000 feet away. By the time it gets over there, once that train's going across there, they're going to hear the train more than they're going to be hearing us. During the day, this thing's hopping. We've already done our acoustics. We've already done all the testing. We're dropping with the train. And by the way, everybody, someone asked me about the train and it's coming or if it's not coming. I hope it comes because we've got a venue in Houston. I'd love to be able to jump on that train, be there an hour and a half, take care of business, be back home, okay? But, you know, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's scrapyards, bullet trains, high rises, or whatever. We're prepared to kind of run the Longhorn Ballroom, run the incubator, and to run the boutique amphitheater. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Why did you point it, from what I understand, the performers will be here, where will the people be sitting?
The people will be standing there looking this way, looking back at you right here.
So the sound is going to go back this way?
The sound is going very specifically into the Great Trinity Forest.
Yes, but there are large neighborhoods of residents who live on the other side of the Trinity River.
That's right.
Who will likely be affected by the sound.
Okay, so good point. Okay,
And
so
that's why I'm wondering, since this is an industrial area, why didn't you orient it the other way? Meaning having the sound go this way.
so we did all the studies. Okay, and there's also people that live about 1,000 feet from right here right now.
Well, these people live over here right now too.
Okay, I can promise you this, we can sit down and talk about it. I'm going to show you the studies and we'll sit down and talk about it. Great question, I'm glad it's coming up. Okay, those neighborhoods, so you got to get across the levee, you got to go across the Trinity, you got to go across the next levee, okay? And so my question for you is this, is right now those trains that are going across, they're coming out 100 dBs. Are you hearing those in your neighborhood?
I'm hearing trains. I don't know where the trains, whether it's the DART trains or the freight trains.
That's the freight train running right there, and then the DART train goes across there. We're going to be underneath that by multiple dBs.
The other thing is that we're talking about a continuous stream of sound.
Right.
Whereas the trains are intermittent.
The trains are, say it again?
They're intermittent. They don't continuously run.
Right.
And we're talking about a continuous volume.
Right.
You have a performer, doing a 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hour
Right.
set.
This is what I would say. If you're in the neighborhood across there, by the time it hits your deal, we'll be within what you're already hearing right now. It'll be coming in at about 57
Yes,
dBs.
but it'll be continuous. That's my point.
I'm sorry.
Context don't go off.
We're not gonna figure this out, but I'll tell you, 57 dBs. That is at 3,000 feet away. So if this one's coming across at 100 and we're already right here at 65. If we're coming across and we're at about 70, 75 right there, by the time it gets to your neighborhood, it's probably less than 50. Now I know that probably doesn't mean anything at 50 because you don't have a frame of reference of what 50 means, but 50 is a car driving down in front of your house. Is that,
Once again, I'm saying that it's a continuous stream of noise.
okay.
And that's the concern. It's not an
the way that
intermittent
it's
cars
Okay.
driving by. Because there's a large residential area just on the other side.
But
Yeah.
then okay,
I wonder if
one
she
second.
lives
So
near a
what you're
street.
hearing here
I wonder if
is
she
to
lives
put it
near a
in
street,
here.
no cars and shit.
That right there is about 65 dBs. What I'm suggesting to you is when you go down to 57, you and I are, I'm yelling a little bit because of that. At 57, you and I we can have a conversation like this. So what you're hearing from me specifically is 57. I'm sorry, I got another question. Yeah, go ahead, young man.
How many nights a year do you plan to have concerts out here?
Oh, this would be limited out here is probably in Texas.
How many nights?
Okay. The question is, how many nights are we out here? Okay. The main ballroom, there's not a lot of people that can do out here. Realistically, if we did 30 shows out here a year, we'd be very happy. Okay.
Less than 2% of the time.
Yes, of the days of the year.
Yes.
Of the days of the year, yes.
Yeah, we would love to do about 100 inside, but about 30
Out
outside.
here, just to,
Yeah, that's.
And you're going to circulate your acoustic review for all this?
Yeah, I thought that. Have you not got it?
I don't think so.
Okay, Suzanne, can you make sure that the?
No. Well, and we'll make sure it gets out to anyone who would like to review.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine. Yes, sir.
So as an outdoor venue, are you not concerned about the particulate matter from the cement processing over there?
The what process?
The cement processing, right? Because I said that's cement processing there, and those are notoriously spewing out the most particulate matter. in terms
Yes,
of, like,
that's a good
breathing in.
point. From an environmental standpoint, yes. I
For
mean,
an-
but
for an-
it's
for
an
an
allowable
outdoor
use and has been for a long period of time. I would say if, right now we're all standing out here and we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? I get it. We all have to make our own choices, and if I get it, that's not the healthiest business. But I'm not going to complain on my neighbor because he's working within the limits of what is allowable. Okay. Yes, sir.
One thing about that is over by Trinity Grove, the cement plant was there. They have now moved out further. I think they moved much further out. And so I would think with development coming for the neighborhood, if the train comes, that may not be here in 10 years.
Yeah,
Not
so-
that you're trying to push it out.
That's a good point.
But
It's not. Let me just say this. Great question, and I think we could stand inside. Other questions specifically, but to a point, you bring up a good point.
What was the
One of the
question,
things that
please?
we have over here is we have a water feature that was the original Trinity. We want to green this place up and do the very best we can. We have parks. Cement's a dirty business, I get it, but it's not something that we're terribly concerned with. We're the new kids on the block. The last thing we're going to do is come in and tell people that they can't operate here. But to your point is if it starts to affect, this place is humming till 5 o'clock. I mean, it's humming and it's really loud in here is what it amounts to, and it's a little bit loud out here. But anyway, to a point, we do have, we've ran an acoustic study, okay? And I think once you see that, it's in depth, and I'd be happy to sit down with you and talk to you about it. Yes, sir.
But one thing about that with this lady in your neighborhood over here, I think would be interesting is this.
you guys here, okay? We're gonna walk up here. This is the famous stage that the Sex Pistols played, that Freddie Fisher played, I just realized, Bobby Woodland, Ray Charles, okay? Lots of famous people. George Strait was here in 1982, okay? Stevie Ray Vaughan. And we're going to let everybody kind of walk on the stage and get your pictures taken. But before we do, can I ask my friend Thomas Short to come up here? Where's Thomas? Does he even know he's going to get to do this?
Here he is. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, can you come up here and do something for me? Yeah. All right. We have not had a singer in front of an audience since I've been doing this. Could you step on that stage and do something?
Yeah.
Let me.
You did your song you write about the Longhorn Ballroom.
Yeah, I wrote this song about 15
Everybody come in
seconds.
here close, okay? I'm kind of putting my friend on the spot. He texted me and asked me if we could go for coffee, and I said, what about cookies? Come over tonight. Everybody come, Waylon Jennings and Willie, when they, to the Sex Pistols and all that. But this is what's great about Texas, okay? The Longhorn was probably the greatest export that Texas had in the 1800s, okay? Then we found energy, okay? But before all that, I still think our greatest export for our state is music. And someone that epitomizes this, we found Thomas as a great songwriter and got behind him when he was still a senior at Baylor University. So I'd ask Thomas if y'all listen in. This is Thomas Chorbett. He'll spell it for you later. One of Texas's. He has no guitar or anything. Thomas, anything you got in mind, we'll listen here. Hey, 1 second. Girls, will you go shut that door because I don't want
I'll
want the trains.
tell you, before I do this, I played a bunch of shows at the Kessler, and Edwin's been such a gift to me and my family, and the ability to share what I make with people. So it's honestly insane to be in this room and to think about what it could be. It's also insane how confident I am in Edwin that it could be something so beautiful. I usually sing this with a guitar in my hand, but here we go. I want to write less about romance and more about love. I want to sing like the angels in the heavens up above. I want to howl like the wolves and sound less like myself. I want you all to believe me, an honest cry for help. I want to look up at a flagpole and be proud of the man I am. Those stars and stripes are flying straight from Betsy Ross's hands. I want to cover Woody Guthrie and mean it when I sing that this land is your land and it was made for you and me. I want to break down all the barriers from the east to the west. And I want to get right with my brother and be a refuge to the rest. Well, I want to sit next to a stranger and learn about his life. 'Cause we're all broken sometimes and we're all gonna die. We're all broken sometimes, and we're all gonna die. We're all broken sometimes, and we're all gonna die. Thank you.
Of course, this is the first time, honestly, I have been in here since our family left in '86. And there's not anything here that was ours. So it's very different, but do you know where the Jack Ruby safe is? Are you going to show it?
Yeah, I want now I've got someone that's validating my views, right? So that's great. We're a long line of storytellers from East Texas, but when we get over there, I want y'all to be sure to come up and talk to Saran about that. I know everybody's been here for a minute, and I want to make sure that I've answered all the questions. But right here, it's technically it's 2,500, but for us, what we generally do, we cut it down.
How are you anticipating, when you redo this, what's the capacity of the space going to be?
Maybe 1,800. Okay, and the way that we do the Kessler is you'll see this pit that was put in after Saran and her family owned it. They cut this in here. Obviously, it looks pretty ragged right now because the flood came in, and we're gonna kind of recut this a little bit, and we're gonna put the wood floors back in where you can do dancing as well. But it's probably about 1,800. Sounds about right. If we really had a burning show, we could go a little higher. Okay.
So here's one other question.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a question you'll be asked. You can answer it now or later. One word. Parking.
That's, you want me to do it in one word, or that's your word?
No, that's my one word.
Oh, okay. That's
We
great.
had 2,000 people allowed here, and we never had problems with parking. And there's new parking that's been added. I don't mean to jump in front of you.
Yes.
But I can speak from a historical perspective that many nights we've had over 2,000 people here.
Yeah, and I'm sure y'all had Uber back then too, right? Yeah.
We did have yellow cabs.
So one of the things that Commissioner asked me about the parking issue, really the case on the zoning case that we're trying to do really is to kind of understand the way parking works now. I will tell you, having done historic buildings, I've got the Kessler Theater. We're pretty consistent, about 4 nights a week. We're anywhere from 400 to 600 people. Anybody got a wild guess at how many parking spaces we have at the Kessler? 3. We've got 3. That's it. Okay. At the Heights, we're a 700 capacity, and we have 0, not a single parking space. Okay. So what does that mean? Does that mean that I don't provide parking? No, because if I don't have parking, my customers don't come. So we have a vested interest to make it work and to be convenient and close. But also the TABC did us a great service. They dropped the drinking from 0.1 to 0.08, okay? And also at the same time that Uber. So we've got a very specific plan about how we'll park this. That will still be overflow parking back there. The 30 nights a year that we may be doing shows out there, we will have some shuttle services as well. When y'all drive out of here, you're going to see plenty of places that we can park. But between the front in here and on the back, we'll have about 150 spots. Plus, we'll have a pretty aggressive shuttle service, not shuttle service, but a shared ride service, okay? But it'll solve itself, and we'll be very, very proactive. We'll hear it from our customers because they will not come if we don't offer these kind of things. Yes, sir.
Can you ask for a show of hands of anybody who has been here during a show during its run?
Yeah, anybody that's been here before 2017, raise your hands here.
But not.
That is.
When it was a bar.
I was in the 60s.
You were in the 60s. Do you remember who you saw?
Merle Haggard, I think.
Okay.
You remember the 60s?
Hey. Hey.
What is that? Is
It's
it
just a
silk?
fabric.
Is it silk or?
I don't know if it's technically a silk. It's probably silk. Let me see.